In New York, a black diplomat in a sharp suit was humiliated and arrested by police who refused to believe his identity. What began as blatant racial profiling exploded into a global outrage, exposing deep systemic injustice. But the personal pain and fight for redemption behind the headlines would shock even the most hardened. Let's start from the beginning. It's a bustling evening in Times Square, New York City. The streets are alive with the chaos of neon lights, street performers, and tourists marveling at the spectacle. Among the crowd strides Alvin Hutchins, a black man in his early 40s, exuding confidence in his tailored navy blue suit. His leather briefcase holds documents for an important diplomatic meeting, a testament to his station and responsibilities. His focus is unwavering, his path direct. But before he can take another step, two white police officers, John Riley and Peter Barkley, intercept him. Their presence is cold and commanding, cutting through the lively energy of the square like a blade. "ID now," Riley demands, his voice sharp with suspicion. Alvin freezes for a split second, startled by the sudden confrontation. He glances around, confusion flickering across his face, before calmly reaching into his inner pocket and presenting his passport. Its cover gleams under the streetlights, the words, "International Diplomat," prominently stamped. The officers exchange a glance, their expressions hard. Riley's lip curls into a smirk. "You don't look like any diplomat I've ever seen. Empty your pockets," he commands, his tone dripping with condescension. Alvin's brow furrows, his voice calm but resolute. "This is outrageous. You're targeting me because I'm black." His words hang in the air, heavy with truth. A murmur ripples through the gathering crowd, and phones are raised to record the scene. A voice shouts, "This is racism!" But the officers remain unfazed. Barkley steps forward and pulls out a pair of handcuffs, snapping them onto Alvin's wrists as the crowd watches in stunned silence. Alvin is seething, his jaw tight, but he refuses to lower his head. As he's led away, flashes from the onlookers' phones illuminate his face, capturing the image of a man whose dignity has been stripped in plain view. Beneath his outward composure burns a righteous fury, not just for himself, but for everyone who has endured this same indignity. This isn't just a moment, it's a spark. At the precinct, Alvin Hutchins sits under the harsh fluorescent lights of a small, cold interrogation room. The gray walls seem to close in as two officers take turns firing questions at him, their tone sharp and condescending. The air is thick with suspicion, their skepticism palpable. "Why were you on Times Square?" one officer asks, leaning forward, his voice a calculated mix of intimidation and mockery. "I told you, I'm here on official business," Alvin replies, his voice steady, though exhaustion seeps into the edges. The second officer smirks, flipping through the passport that Alvin had provided earlier. "International diplomat? Sure doesn't mean much when you're out here acting suspicious." Alvin's jaw tightens, but he refuses to lose composure. "I've already told you who I am," he says firmly, holding back the rising frustration. "Check with the State Department if you don't believe me." His tone is measured, but the indignity of having to repeatedly defend his identity cuts deep. Hours drag on. The officers press him with increasingly absurd questions, treating him less like a diplomat and more like a suspect. They're determined to incriminate. Alvin maintains his calm exterior, but inside, anger churns. The humiliation of sitting here, stripped of his dignity, is a weight he can't ignore. Suddenly, the door swings open with force, and Sarah Miller strides in, her presence electrifying the room. She's a sharp, no-nonsense civil rights attorney whose reputation precedes her. "You've arrested a UN diplomat?" she exclaims, her voice reverberating through the precinct. The officers flinch at her words, their confidence visibly shaken. Do you have any idea what kind of international crisis this could cause? She continues, her tone sharp and unforgiving. Alvin feels a momentary relief as her words cut through the tension. But beneath that, anger lingers, smoldering like a fire refusing to be extinguished. The memory of his younger brother flashes through his mind. Another time, another injustice, but the pain just as raw. That memory solidifies his resolve. This isn't just about him. It's about the countless others who have suffered the same indignities. And Alvin knows. He won't let this go unanswered. By morning, Alvin Hutchins's arrest is no longer a private humiliation. It's a global controversy. Grainy cell phone footage of his encounter with the police circulates rapidly online. The hashtag #JusticeForAlvin trending within hours. The videos capture every moment. His calm but firm protests, the dismissive tone of the officers, and the glaring injustice of a man in a tailored suit, handcuffed for no reason other than the color of his skin. Social media erupts with anger. Comments flood in from every corner of the world, denouncing the blatant racial profiling. "This is why we need reform," one user writes, while another states, "It could have been me. It could have been any of us." The outrage quickly spills into the streets. By midday, a crowd gathers outside the precinct where Alvin was held. Protesters hold up handmade signs reading, "Racial profiling must end," and "Justice knows no color." Their chants echo across the city streets, demanding answers, accountability, and change. Inside a bustling press conference, Sarah Miller takes the podium first. She announces that a lawsuit has been filed against the police department, citing civil rights violations and systemic misconduct. Her voice is unwavering as she lists demands for accountability and sweeping reform. Then Alvin steps forward. The room falls silent as cameras focus on him. Despite the whirlwind of events, he stands composed, his gaze steady. He begins to speak, his voice measured but powerful. "This isn't just about me," he says, pausing to let the weight of his words sink in. "This is about everyone who has ever been judged, mistreated, or dehumanized because of their race. This has to stop." The impact is immediate. His words resonate far beyond the walls of the room. Activists, civil rights leaders, and even UN officials lend their voices in solidarity. Politicians issue statements, some scrambling to be on the right side of public opinion. Alvin's calm determination and eloquence transform him into more than just a victim. He becomes a symbol of resistance, a rallying cry for those fighting against racial injustice. And as the movement grows, it carries with it a flicker of hope. Perhaps this time, real change is within reach. Weeks later, the court rules in Alvin's favor. The officers are found to have violated his civil rights and are suspended without pay, pending further investigation. The police department issues a public apology, and city officials announce new measures to address racial profiling. But Alvin's fight doesn't end there. He uses his platform to advocate for broader reforms, speaking at rallies and conferences. "Justice isn't justice if it only works for some," he declares to a crowd of thousands. His passion inspires people across the globe to take action in their own communities. The story concludes with Alvin standing on a stage, addressing a massive crowd in Washington, D.C. His voice rings with conviction. "We've proven that injustice can be challenged. Now it's up to all of us to keep pushing for a better future." The crowd erupts in applause, and Alvin steps back, his heart full of determination. This isn't just his victory. It's a step forward for everyone. This story leaves readers with a sense of hope and empowerment, reminding them that even the most crushing injustices can lead to profound change when courage meets resilience.